Hello everybody. Today I want to introduce to you a deacon in the Catholic Church and a good friend of mine. His name is Ray Gallego. You see, Ray spends most of his day involved in the lives of homeless men. I went to visit Ray, and yes, I wanted to know what he does. But more importantly, I wanted to know what it has to do with being a man of faith, with being a deacon. Ray was ordained a deacon for the Catholic Church, the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, by Archbishop Jose Gomez. Shortly thereafter, Ray became managing director for Mary's Village. Mary's Village is a transitional housing facility. It is essentially a ministry for homeless men. These men are seeking to find a way out of the streets and into normal life with a normal job. This facility sits in the city of San Bernardino on 10 acres of land. I sat down with Ray one day and not only wanted to know what he does, but why he does it.
And then just recently, this past year, we opened up Mary's Village, which is a transitional living facility for men. We don't like to use the word shelter. We're not a place for them to put their heads and give them a meal and kick them out the next day. We're a 12 to 24 month program where the men have to come here with the commitment to make their lives better, because we can't help them unless they want to help themselves. And we just monitor them, make sure that they're doing things correctly. And part of the program is simple things like making their bed in the morning, brushing their teeth, making breakfast, cleaning the dishes, and the list goes on and on. Daily chores that you and I had growing up, and mom and dad telling us to do it, well, I guess I'm dad. And I make sure it's done correctly. Because ultimately my goal for them is to learn how to live on their own. And the list of things that they have to accomplish is huge, but by the time they're done here, I'm assured that they'll be fine, they'll be safe. So that's basically the process.
I learned from Deacon Ray that ministering to the homeless is not easy and is complicated.
These men that live on the streets, a good majority of them don't want to make that commitment to change their lives yet. They're comfortable living on the streets. They're comfortable living in the streets during the winter. My men that are here, that are committed, have told me it's easier to be homeless. It's easier to wake up when you want to wake up and sleep when you want to sleep and get up and go get something to eat when you want to get something to eat. And so, unfortunately, it kills me to say this, but I've had more men that I've accepted here, and they, A, didn't show up, or B, they left for those reasons.
So some men, it seems, would rather be out on the streets.
Yes.
Yeah. That must be a big challenge for you.
It's a huge challenge. It engulfs my daily thoughts and even my thoughts in the middle of the night. And how
I also learned that virtually all of the men come to Mary's Village with a sense of God, with a faith that is integral to the ministry here.
We are a Catholic-based organization, but we don't push Catholicism on them. I don't Bible thump them, but do I talk about God all day long? Absolutely. But so do they. So I'll see guys grouping together, and I kind of do a little eavesdropping, and they have a Bible, and they're just doing Bible scripture together. I didn't ask them to do it. And it just, talking about it now just makes me feel good. So the spirituality part, I thought that would be the hardest part. I'm finding that it's the easier part. And the hard part is identifying the men that want to commit and want to make their lives better.
And I wanted to know, what does all of this have to do with being a deacon?
But for me, being a deacon isn't only about liturgy. It's not only about the Eucharist, although I enjoy serving at Mass, and it's always such a beautiful encounter. But for me, it's about service. It's about being in the trenches. I think the best way to identify it is in my younger days when I could, I played football, organized football, and I loved being in the pit, or we call the trenches, because we're the foundation of the team. I didn't need the glory of a quarterback or a running back or a wide receiver. I wanted to be the reason why they scored those touchdowns. And I didn't need the glory. And that's kind of how I feel about my own diaconate life.
Okay.
It's about service to the people. It's about serving God in the way that He has asked me to serve.
And how has God asked Ray to serve?
The guys that are here are broken. They need to be fixed. And you can't fix them. They might be committed, but you can't fix them unless you show them that compassion that Jesus has taught us.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means embracing them. Sometimes that means telling them, you know what, dude, I love you. And they look at you like, damn, no one's told me that in years. They'll say that to you. So, you know, that's the groundbreaking part. That's the part they'll say, you know what, that guy really cares about me. Or that staff member really cares about me. Or they all really care about me.
All good, but I still wanted to know. I could do your job here. I mean, in principle. I'm a layman. But you're doing the job as a deacon. What's the difference?
I think the difference is, and we're not talking about Dr. Bill Shaw's the layman, we're talking about just a general layman. The difference is the spirituality, that training. The difference is me making a decision, and before I make a stark decision, there is a process I go through, and it's prayer, basically. And then the ultimate question before making the decision is, what would Jesus do? What would He like me to do? What do I do?
Right.
God, tell me what to do. And that's how I've been handling my ministry since day one.
For Ray, primary within the expression of deacon are mercy and compassion.
You know, as a lay person, you know, there's things that these individuals do here, these residents, and, you know, the untrained person would probably say, you know what, that's an infraction and we're going to discharge you. As I explained, I go through a process with them, and it is about mercy, because if you really think about these guys, they had to be tough. They had to protect themselves, and the only way they know, it's verbal and it's physical, and hopefully it wasn't worse. So a lot of times these guys will pop off and will say words, and 10 minutes later they'll come in and apologize. And that is part of my answer to the prayer that I'm having about what do I do with this guy. That's God sending him back in my office saying, get your butt in there quick and say you're sorry, otherwise something else might happen. Yeah. And I'm not talking about once in a while. This happens quite often, and it's with different individuals. So having that sense of mercy and compassion, and that's what it really comes down to. How much do you really care about the guys that are here and the guys that are coming in and the guys that didn't come here? I still pray for those guys.
So it's all about love. It reminds me of a passage found in the New Testament in the first letter of John. The passage states, "If you do not love a brother or sister whom you have seen, you cannot love God whom you haven't seen." Homelessness is a difficult and complicated issue. Deacon Ray and his colleagues are in the midst of it. It occurred to me that they do what they do because they are rooted in the reality of who they know Jesus to be. What this has to do with being a deacon, I'm not sure, except to say that perhaps being a deacon manifests or demonstrates the relationship between going to church and making a difference in the community, between faith and faith lived out in action. And I ask you, doesn't this make faith authentic? Bill Schulz, wishing all of you shalom. Be well.